Before we begin, please be advised that this blink contains details that some people might find distressing. If you or someone you know needs support, please reach out to a trusted friend or healthcare professional. Ever wondered why some people can enjoy a glass of wine with dinner while others can't stop at one? Charles Knowles certainly did, especially one afternoon nearly a decade ago when he sat on a Florida deck with a bottle of Bacardi and a handgun, contemplating suicide. Knowles doesn't fit the stereotype of an alcoholic. Cambridge graduate, published researcher with over 300 scientific papers, practicing surgeon, yet he found himself unable to control his drinking. Why is it that some people drink socially while others spiral into dependence? The answer lies not in moral weakness or willpower, but in how our brains process reward and memory. Variations rooted partly in genetics and partly in our life experiences, especially childhood, determine who can take it or leave it and who can't. This blink explores the neuroscience behind alcohol dependence, revealing why it's a biological problem affecting people across all walks of life. You'll discover what happens in the brain when you drink, why some of us are wired differently, and how the spectrum ranges from gray area drinking to full dependence. Finally, you'll learn science-based principles for anyone ready to change their relationship with alcohol. Our relationship with alcohol runs deeper than culture or habit. It's written into our biology. 10 million years ago, our hominid ancestors evolved the ability to metabolize alcohol, likely as a survival advantage when climate disruption forced them to eat fermenting fruit from the forest floor. We've been deliberately manufacturing it for over 10,000 years, mastering fermentation even before we invented the toilet. Alcohol predates humanity itself, and our attraction to it, shared with vervets, chimps, and even bohemian waxwings, has fundamental biological roots. When we drink, we're activating our reward system, a specialized network of brain circuits centered on dopamine that evolved to prioritize survival-critical behaviors like eating and reproduction. Alcohol produces both stimulating effects, boosting confidence and removing inhibitions, and depressant effects that provide temporary relief from negative emotions and difficult memories. These rewards trigger the same survival-critical brain circuits that tell us to seek food or shelter. External motivations, for example celebration, social conformity, or peer pressure, may get us started. The advertising industry, cultural norms, and social rituals then all play their part. But for those who drink regularly or problematically, internal motivations drive consumption. We drink because of how it makes us feel. In theory, we balance pros and cons on drinking scales before choosing to drink. Yet this system is fundamentally flawed. We make most decisions instinctively and automatically. What feels like conscious choice is often autopilot running on hunches and gut feelings. We vividly remember alcohol's pleasant effects while the hangovers, arguments, and embarrassments fade quickly from memory. The trap is that alcohol activates brain pathways designed to override rational choice in favor of survival priorities. We're creatures whose brains have evolved to seek rewards that enhance survival, and alcohol has learned to speak that ancient language fluently. Alcohol's journey through your body reveals why it's so uniquely potent. This tiny molecule passes easily from your stomach into your bloodstream within minutes. The liver processes about 90% of it, breaking alcohol down through two enzymes into harmless acetate, but the remaining 10% escapes into general circulation and reaches your brain in roughly 90 seconds. Once there, alcohol does something no other single drug can. It affects multiple neurotransmitter systems simultaneously. It triggers endorphins, the body's natural opioids, suppresses gamma-aminobutyric acid, or GABA, which releases dopamine, creating euphoria, alters serotonin, which affects mood and empathy, and at higher concentrations disrupts GABA and glutamate to sedate the entire nervous system. This creates a biphasic curve. At low blood alcohol levels, you experience psychostimulatory effects, confidence, disinhibition, and anxiety relief. As your consumption continues, sedative effects take over: slurred speech, poor coordination, memory blackouts, and eventually unconsciousness. Sensitivity varies according to an individual's genetics. The health consequences begin at modest levels. Alcohol is a Group 1 carcinogen, the same category as asbestos, increasing risk for 7 cancers including breast, bowel, and liver. Even 5 to 10 grams daily, that's half a standard drink, increases breast cancer risk by 15%. Liver disease progresses from fatty liver to cirrhosis, now affecting even regular social drinkers. Cardiovascular risks include high blood pressure from just one daily drink, irregular heartbeat, and stroke. The myth of the protective glass of red wine has been oversold. While modest consumption may slightly reduce heart attack risk, stroke risk increases at any level. And above 10 units per week, life expectancy and healthy years lived decrease. Brain damage accumulates quietly. Even 1 to 2 units daily reduces gray matter volume. Heavy chronic drinking causes cognitive decline and increases dementia risk. The brain you're preserving matters as much as the years you're living. Most people worrying about their drinking aren't medically dependent. They're in the gray area. Roughly 20% of drinkers fall here, concerned about consumption, struggling with control, but not meeting dependence criteria. Knowles exemplified this. She considered herself a normal social drinker who could stop for dry January, but couldn't stay stopped. During the COVID-19 lockdown, her drinking escalated. She found herself drinking alone, hiding in the utility room to pour drinks. She noticed the costs: weight gain, rosacea, poor sleep, but felt stuck between normal and alcoholic. Between neutrality and dependence lies alcohol reliance, when alcohol becomes a regular habit that's hard to relinquish. You rely on it to de-stress after work, feel confident socially, or manage difficult emotions. Reliance is defined by internal drive rather than quantity consumed. In trial surveys, over 90% of gray area drinkers answered yes to at least one reliance question. Most commonly, I rely on a drink to de-stress. The key message is that this is a spectrum. Most people reviewing their drinking inhabit the gray zone. Understanding where you fall requires examining both the physical risks you're accumulating and the psychological role alcohol plays in your life. Real alcohol dependence affects about 5% of regular drinkers. It's defined by 3 elements: a strong drive to drink, impaired ability to control consumption, and persistence despite clear harm. The hallmark is compulsivity, spinning endlessly around a cycle where withdrawal symptoms create craving, drinking brings temporary relief, then withdrawal returns. This is rock bottom, the exhausting cognitive dissonance of fighting your own brain while it pushes the override button. Dependence arises from 2 distinct biological mechanisms. First, addiction hijacks the attention-attraction circuit, an ancient survival system designed to make us notice, approach, and consume critical resources like food. Alcohol activates this circuit through the reward pathway, creating super league memories stored in the amygdala that can't be purposely unlearned. Like learning to ride a bike, you never forget. But unlike a bike, the attention-attraction system overrides rational choice when triggered by reward cues, such as the sight of a bar or the smell of alcohol. Second, withdrawal intolerance developed through brain homeostasis. The brain rewires itself to counter alcohol's sedative effects, creating an unopposed excitatory state when alcohol leaves the bloodstream. This manifests as anxiety, sweating, shaking, craving. With repeated cycles, withdrawal worsens progressively and becomes generally irreversible. Even after months of abstinence, a few drinks can trigger severe withdrawal within hours. Genetics account for roughly 50% of dependence risk. Some people are biological drinking champions. They get more psychostimulatory reward and less sedation from the same blood alcohol level. Others have dopamine receptor deficiencies that make them seek substances to overcome the deficit. Stress response genes affect withdrawal severity. But the strongest genetic signal is the massive overlap with neurodevelopmental conditions. ADHD shows up in 25% of people in alcohol treatment. Autism, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia also carry dramatically elevated risk. Environment provides the other 50%. Childhood attachment failures create adults who struggle with self-regulation in relationships. Trauma, abuse, and neglect embed deep psychological wounds. ADHD, PTSD, anxiety, and depression all increase risk 3-fold or more. Adult stressors like work pressure, low self-esteem, and social anxiety pile on, Crucially, many people drink to achieve social fitness, the ability to protect themselves, reciprocate socially, and appear romantically desirable. For those who feel they don't fit in, alcohol becomes a survival solution, activating the same brain circuits our ancestors used to find food in the jungle. So, the answer to why me? Dependence typically requires biological sensitivity plus psychological need plus environmental stress. Charles Knowles had all three. First, biological sensitivity, genetic loading for ADHD, plus the physiology of a drinking champion who could consume massive quantities while remaining functional. Second, psychological need, childhood emotional struggles and low self-esteem. And third, environmental stress, boarding school trauma and a high-stress surgical career. This combination is brain-based, determined by factors largely outside conscious control. 12 principles apply to anyone reviewing their relationship with alcohol, from gray area drinkers to those battling dependence. They synthesize everything learned about why we drink too much into actionable guidance. First, it's not your fault. Problems with alcohol stem from brain-based reward processing, neuroplasticity, genetics, and psychology, not weak willpower. People start from different biological and psychological places. The amount of alcohol consumed doesn't determine who develops problems. Underlying differences do. Second, understand that it's not about stopping, it's about not restarting. Anyone can put down a glass. That part's easy. The challenge is staying stopped, not picking it back up. Temporary abstinence happens all the time. Sustained change requires addressing why you restart. Third, remember that controlling drinking through reducing access doesn't work. Being neutral around alcohol matters more than access. Fourth, the problem is in your head. Every aspect of alcohol dependence, reward processing, learning, memory, decision-making, happens in the brain. Genetics and life experiences shape your psychological relationship with alcohol. Any scientific approach must be brain-based, thinking, not drinking. The fifth principle requires personal willingness as a prerequisite. Change requires wanting it for yourself, not for a spouse, parent, employer, or judge. It's internal motivation that sustains your effort. Next, don't fight alone. Virtually all successful approaches incorporate human support, friends, family, therapists, or community programs. Sharing the problem is essential, though difficult when relationships have been damaged by drinking. Isolation perpetuates problems. Connection enables recovery. 7. Don't fight with one hand tied behind your back. Most people need complete abstinence, at least initially, to properly evaluate their relationship with alcohol, learn new coping strategies, and allow the brain to heal. Similarly, don't fight on multiple fronts. Replace the calories and fluids you were consuming from alcohol. Don't simultaneously quit smoking or eliminate caffeine. Address one major challenge at a time. The ninth principle distinguishes three states. Abstinence means not drinking. Neutrality means not craving or obsessing, being around alcohol without internal struggle. Sobriety goes deeper, achieving peace, emotional regulation without chemical assistance, addressing underlying psychological issues that drove drinking. They're different headspaces requiring different work. 10th, medical assistance may be required. Physical dependence can make withdrawal dangerous without supervised detox, using medications like benzodiazepines. Mental health disorders often need professional treatment alongside support programs. The 11th principle is to never stop trying. Multiple attempts don't indicate failure, they improve success odds. Like quitting smoking, most people need several attempts. Persistence matters more than perfection. Finally, one size doesn't fit all. Biology, psychology, and circumstances vary enormously. Effective approaches are individual. These principles inform the practical question everyone faces. Should you stop permanently, stop temporarily and reassess, or continue drinking but moderate to safer levels? The answer depends on your individual circumstances, particularly the degree of control you've lost. Remember Annie Knowles, who struggled to moderate her drinking during the pandemic? She never intended to quit permanently. She just wanted a break to improve her health. Through a 30-day program called the Alcohol Experiment, which combines education with community support, she discovered life without alcohol: better sleep, mood, weight loss, clearer skin. After 4 rounds over 4 years, she quit altogether, became a sober coach, and now runs the program for UK Emergency Services with over 700 participants. Her story illustrates the crucial decision: stop permanently or moderate. For dependence, permanent abstinence is necessary. Addiction creates unlearnable long-term memories in the amygdala. The attention attraction circuit overrides rational choice when triggered by any alcohol. Withdrawal is progressive and irreversible. The first drink kills, one drink restarts the cycle within days. For gray area drinkers with reliance, moderation may work, but initial complete abstinence helps reweight the scales by experiencing the pros of not drinking rather than just avoiding cons. Community support drives all successful approaches. Sober programs, gray area groups, and AA combine peer support with education and shared experience. Effectiveness comes from witnessing transformations, learning you're not alone, building new social networks. 30-day experiments teach the positives: improved sleep, relationships, work performance, self-esteem, plus reclaimed time and money. Alcoholics Anonymous may be controversial, but with 80 years, 2 million members, and 118,000 groups worldwide, it survives because it works. Research shows it performs as well as or better than cognitive behavioral therapy while reducing healthcare costs. The God language reflects its 1930s origins, but spirituality can mean nature, community, or just something bigger than yourself. Core elements work across approaches: education about alcohol's effects, peer accountability, changing social networks to avoid drinking buddies and triggers, addressing underlying drivers, that's trauma, ADHD, anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, for example, and avoiding reward cues that activate craving. There are medications too, naltrexone and acamprosate, for example, but they're rarely prescribed as they have mixed effectiveness. GLP-1 drugs, the obesity medications, show promise in reducing cravings but aren't magic bullets and work best with behavioral support. Because alcohol damages the default mode network governing self-reference, emotional memory, and social connection, mindfulness and spiritual practices may reverse these changes. The transformation: isolation to connection, selfishness to altruism, shame to self-compassion, fear to serenity. True sobriety isn't just abstinence. Anyone can be a miserable dry drunk. Real sobriety means peace, emotional regulation without alcohol, and addressing the void alcohol filled. Recovery is possible from rock bottom. 10 years after Knowles' drinking led him to contemplate suicide, he's now neutral around alcohol, his marriage has transformed, and his career is flourishing. The answer to why me lies in biology and psychology beyond your control, but the path forward lies in understanding, community, and the courage to change. In this Blink to Why We Drink Too Much by Charles Knowles, you've learned that alcohol problems are brain-based rather than about weak willpower. Drinkers exist on a spectrum from casual use to full dependence. Risk is roughly 50% genetic and 50% environmental. Health damage accumulates even at modest levels. Brain shrinkage and cancer risks start with just 1 to 2 drinks daily. Heavier consumption leads to liver disease. Community support and recovery, whether through AA or sober groups, works by building connection and addressing underlying drivers. Recovery is possible, even from rock bottom. Okay, that's it for this Blink. We hope you enjoyed it. If you can, please take the time to leave us a rating. We always appreciate your feedback. See you in the next Blink.